Since the last municipal elections when housing was a big concern, much has changed, but mostly not for the better. So as politicians in this year's municipal elections come knocking, what questions might voters ask of those candidates on dealing with a housing crunch? With us to help with that, Ian Underwood, Chief Executive Officer at Habitat for Humanity in the Greater Toronto Area, who was a member of Ontario's Housing Affordability Task Force. Hi, Ian.
Hi, great to be here.
Thanks so much for being here. So let's talk numbers because the last election, municipal election, was 2018. And according to the Canadian Real Estate Association, in summer of 2018, home prices in Ontario were more than $550,000. As of September this year, the average price of a home in Ontario was more than $830,000. Of course, I think those numbers have been adjusted a little bit because of the rising interest rates. Is it fair to say that housing affordability is top of mind for the upcoming municipal elections?
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's good to start with the numbers, and because if you think of 2018, in 2018, housing was top of mind, in certainly in the GTA where we are, and in the major urban centres in Ontario. Now it is an issue in every community across the province. The community I grew up in a farm outside a little town called Wingham. In 2018, you could buy a home in Wingham for $250,000, and now you have to have $500,000. You know, Owen Sound, $350,000 in 2018. Now it's $700,000. Like this is housing now is a top of mind issue in every community, as is homeless and the homeless side. We talk about the prices to buy. Every community is also now talking about homelessness. Communities that thought homelessness was a big city problem. It's part of the challenge now in every community. So people that are asking for your vote now are facing such a different housing landscape than ever before in our history of what they're coming into for their next 4-year term.
If I'm someone watching this and I hear how much housing has gone up in those 4 years, I might think, well, what's the point of voting? Because nothing's changed. The situation has only become worse. What should voters expect from municipal candidates on this issue?
Yeah, well, so the first one, as we've been talking about, and so with candidate at your door, or when you're going and looking at their website for what they say their platform is, the first thing to look for is, are they have a housing of at least their number one or number two issue? Because if it's not a number one or number two issue, you need to find another candidate. Because, as I said, we are at a point in time in all of our communities where we have a lot of catching up to do. So that's really the kind of the first thing that people need to look for is the person that's asking for their vote making this a number one or number two issue. And this might be your next question, but then beyond that, because what you'll see on lots of websites, people are saying, I'm going to get more housing built. But then the question is, how? What are you going to do to build more housing? And I can kind of give you a rundown from my perspective of, the 5 things I think people should listen for.
Because how much power do local candidates have when it comes to housing?
Well, yeah, so this is also important, is, a challenge with housing is it is something that all levels of government influence. So that leads to one of the things to listen for is people need to vote for politicians who are committed to collaborate across levels of government, as well as push levels of government, push the province for what the province can do to support housing, as well as cooperate with the province on what the province is doing and will do to advance housing. But the pieces that the municipal influences more than anyone other level of government is what gets built, how fast it gets built, how much gets built. So the questions that people should be asking of their candidates are number one, as I said, number 5 is are you going to collaborate with other levels? But number 1 is, are you going to advance the diversity and density of housing in our communities?
What do you mean by diversity?
By diversity of housing is, so the Canadian norm, the North American norm has been the single detached home. And so we've enshrined that into the zoning of most of our communities, that all that you can build in most residential areas is that single detached home. But what that means is in communities throughout Ontario, we have seniors who can't downsize because there's no fourplex to downsize to. Certainly in the city of Toronto, we have 70% of our communities are just single or semi-detached homes, which means we don't have more affordable options. So when I say diversity, it is the notion of advancing zoning that enables a diversity of housing forms to be built.
Okay. Something that we do hear a lot on this program, there's a large amount of people who can't even buy, who are renting.
Yeah.
Will there be a difference in questions to municipal candidates for those who are renters versus those who own homes?
Yeah, so you're right. Rent, the absence of purpose-built rental is a huge issue in all of our communities. So it's a big city issue. It is a small town issue. And so the progressive things that municipalities can do often will relate to fees as well as property taxes. So providing, I think it's Belleville, is providing incentives around purpose-built rental of 50% reduction in development charges for purpose-built rental. City of Toronto has done some of that around purpose-built rental. So having concessions around fees to incent developers to be able to build purpose-built rental. The rise in interest rate has caused, we were starting to make progress on rental in this province, and the rise in interest rates has made it economically much less viable. So now municipalities need to kind of jump ahead on that and say, okay, now what can we do to get the wheels for purpose-built rental moving again?
We've got a lot to get to, and we're going to talk about how housing affordability looks like around the province.
Right.
There are some areas that are seeing a decline in year-over-year home prices, and other areas where they're still seeing an increase. Let's take a look in some of those areas.
Right.
There's been a decrease year-over-year in Chatham, Kent, Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, York, and Durham regions. Some other regions across the province have increased up to 10%, but where prices have gone up around 10% are in Cornwall and District, North Bay, Timmins, Cochrane, and Temiskaming districts, and Windsor, Essex. And it's gone up more than 16% in Sault Ste. Marie. Those numbers are just mind-boggling. So let's talk first about Eastern Ontario. Some areas that are seeing an increase are Ottawa has surpassed the 1 million mark for population. What impact will that have on available housing?
Well, and first of all, I think I want to say, regardless of whether those numbers went up or down, like 10% up, 10% down, we need to remember that makes zero difference to most workers that are at the lower and increasingly middle income levels. So if you've got a good job in manufacturing, you started at 65,000, you may end up being a supervisor at 120. In a lot of these communities, that's still not getting you into the market with even if the housing prices have softened a bit, the offset of interest rates, you're still not getting into the market. So your comment about Ottawa. So Ottawa, is an example of a city that, yes, has that growth, and the conversations there are, as I understand it, there are certainly conversations about densification in Ottawa. One of the challenges there is they've introduced some new fees. The council introduced some new fees, particularly around the increased density of the transit corridors in Ottawa, which are then creating a disincentive for developers to be able to build that denser housing along transit corridors that would be more affordable to live in because it's denser and your transit costs will be lower. So the notion of how do you balance that issue of getting the density you need to make it affordable for people trying to buy.
Let's talk about York region. There's a decrease in prices in York region, but homes there in the GTA are still more than $1 million. What impact is that having on housing?
Yeah, and so York, is part of the GTA. Again, I want to emphasize that these decreases are really around the margin of really affecting affordability, and so there still is. And York, throughout the GTA, another of the issues here has been the fees to build that new housing. Again, this is something the municipal politicians can influence. Throughout the GTA, whether it's York or elsewhere, we've actually had I think it's a 30 to 36% increase in the fees on housing, so on to build new housing since the start of the pandemic. Those things influence how much housing is getting built and how much it's going to cost the person buying it.
We've been hearing about strong mayors, and one of the justifications for having this strong mayor's powers for Ottawa and Toronto specifically, the province says it'll be able to expedite housing, and it needs to be addressed because the housing crunch that we're having right now. Are strong mayor powers something voters should be considering when it comes to housing?
I think, so I'm going to make an overall statement here of just reminding kind of all voters, we genuinely have a housing crisis. right now. And so we need to be willing to do some things differently and to take some risks. The reality for mayors of large cities is they have one vote around the table. So, we put all this effort into who will be the mayor, and, you get a big office and you get a big title and you have one vote. And so the strong mayor's policy, as I understand it, is intended to give those mayors a greater power to act on provincial priorities, particularly as it relates to housing. That's a good thing. Mayors also are not able to choose who the senior staff will be. There's a whole bureaucratic process around that right now.
But it's not just cities, it's not just Ottawa and Toronto that are experiencing these crunches, right?
Mm-hmm, correct, yep.
So why not other cities get these powers, if that's the justification?
Yeah, and I think I'd say, so I'm not close to and I'm not party to the thinking around strong mayors, but I think I am of a view that this is a change that we should be embracing, supporting in these two cities. And I am assuming, but as I said, I'm not party to the thinking, that there will be a then watch and wait and see, is this something that would be helpful in other municipalities?
We only have a few minutes left. I want to talk about the north. Prices are also rising in some of the provinces, northern regions. What are some of the important areas of discussion for people up north?
The north has all the same regions everyone else does, but more acutely. So issues of access to labor, access to supply, shorter building season with our Canadian winter. So getting things built in the north is even more challenging. One of the themes, as I understand it, in the north and in many other communities, is just also preserving and improving the housing that is there, as well as supporting changes to be able to convert housing into multiplex and other housing forms as well.
So what should voters be asking candidates when the candidates come knocking on the door?
Well, so again, because our time is limited, I think I'm going to come back to whatever region of Ontario you're in, here's the things to ask. Are you making housing a number one priority? Are you going to be supporting changes to zoning that will increase the density of housing? What are you going to do to advance and support changes that will speed up the time to approval? In the City of Toronto, $36,000 per year is the cost of a year of an approval on a ground-related home. Every year we take to approve a home, we just add the price of $36,000 to it. So what are you going to do to speed up approvals? What are you going to do around affordable housing? That's my world. In Habitat for Humanity, what incentives will you create and support so we can get more deeply affordable housing built for folks that are homeless, as well as folks in my world that are looking to step up and start building equity through home ownership? And then how are you going to collaborate with other levels of government?
So we know a lot of people in the GTA, because they couldn't afford to live in the GTA, moved out to other communities. They've moved west, they've moved south of the GTA, and then that's causing a ripple effect in those communities, making them more expensive. What kind of pressure will that put on affordability in those areas?
Yeah, well, and there's two sides of this equation. So the first is depopulation in the GTA. So Toronto, if Toronto had the same kind of level of population in our residential neighborhoods today that we did in 2001, we'd have 210,000 more spaces for people to live. So Toronto is depopulating. 65,000 people left Toronto just during the pandemic, which lowers the tax base in Toronto. Meanwhile, the folks from Toronto go to those smaller centers, North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, the places you referred to with the big increases, Wasaga Beach, 20% increase in population. And they go there with more money. And so they're raising the prices in those communities, which are make it harder for the young family that grew up in that community. Now they're 29 years old, they have 2 kids, they can't afford to buy. So, but it still brings us back to the same themes. This is why we need to increase the diversity of housing in the communities, get more housing built, get it built faster, be very careful with fees on new housing versus property taxes, so that everyone in Ontario can have that aspiration we thought everybody should be able to have, which is if you work hard, you play by the rules, you can be able to aspire to build a home that works for you and your family.
In 4 years, if we have this conversation again, I hope the numbers have improved a little bit
you
for
and I
everybody in
both.
this province.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ian. Appreciate
Thank
your time.
you.
Yeah.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.